rampant corruption in the government. The chief executive has asked the Justice Department-led task force to investigate the entire government for potential irregularities. Duterte also wants the task force to give special attention to the Department of Public Works and Highways. But just like in his previous speeches, the president has cleared the name of DPWH Secretary Mark Villar. The so-called mega task force has been authorized to create as many panels as it deems necessary. They may also direct other government agencies to assist such panels. The president says the directive shall remain in effect until his term ends. Recall that the said task force was initially created to investigate the anomalies in PhilHealth. The president acknowledged that a number of PhilHealth officials have already resigned due to corruption allegations. But this does not mean they are off the hook.
You are not allowed to resign if there is a pending case against you. Mag-resign ka man, hindi ka mag-report, but then you would be summoned or subpoenaed.
In his briefing this afternoon, Palace spokesperson Harry Roque explained why the president chose the DOJ despite the presence of a functioning office of the Ombudsman.
Even if there is an office of the Ombudsman, the biggest public prosecutor is still under the Department of Justice, no? Because the number of prosecutors that we have under the DOJ are simply probably 20 times more than the lawyers that they have at the office of the Ombudsman.
Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara admits that this is the toughest order he has received from the president. His plan is to immediately focus on the organizational setup and mechanism to eradicate corruption. The Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission, for its part, assures the public that there will not be an overlapping of assignments. PACC Commissioner Greco Belgica says the commission will focus on investigating presidential appointees. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
President Duterte has announced the quarantine classifications for November. Metro Manila will remain under general community quarantine, along with Batangas, Iloilo City, Bacolod City, Tacloban City, Iligan City, and Lanao del Sur. This marks the first month during the pandemic when no areas in the country will be placed under the strictest quarantine classifications of ECQ and modified ECQ. Public Works Secretary Mark Villar insists that the department continues to do its job despite the corruption allegations surrounding them. Gerard de la Peña has the report.
This pumping station in Tondo, Manila has just started operating 2 years after its construction commenced. The project, which costs 774 million pesos, will help manage flooding in low-lying areas of Sampaloc and Blumentritt. Public Works Secretary Mark Villar said the project will be helpful, especially during the rainy season.
Ngayon, panahon ng baha, syempre, kailangan, ito pong connected ito sa Blumentritt Interceptor. So, lahat po ng flood dito sa Manila, covering Espanya, Sampaloc, ito isa-service niya yung area. So, at least pagdating ng mga bagyo, magsusubside kaagad yung tubig. Kung makikita nyo naman po, pati yung mga basura na galing sa mga estero, makukuha natin.
Villar added that the operationalization of the project is just one proof that the DPWH is still on its toes amid corruption allegations. The official also noted that they have been conducting their own investigation within the agency. In fact, a number of employees have already been put on preventive suspension or on floating status.
Both high and low ranking, wala namang kaming pipiliin. Whether high or low ranking, meron kaming iniimbestigan.
With this, Villar warned employees in the DPWH that no one will be spared if proven guilty of illegal transactions.
Yun, watch out. Okay, nakatutok kami dito, pati si Presidente, kaya there will be many results very soon.
President Duterte has instructed the Justice Department to probe corruption across the government. The chief executive singled out the DPWH anew over issues of corruption, but did not put the blame on Villar.
That I have nothing against Secretary Villar. He's one of the hard-working at maraming accomplishments si Secretary Villar. But you know, accomplishments alone, to me, should not suffice. Laparo na sa akin. Hindi na Secretary Villar, because it's not his job to be running after crooks. But it behooves upon me to see to it na itong corruption mahinto kundi at least maputo na ng konti.
For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
The Health Department logs 1,500 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday. The total caseload now stands at 373,000, around 37,000 of which are still considered active. 14 people died from the virus in the past 24 hours. Some good news though, more than 350 COVID-19 patients have gotten better from the disease. We'll be back with more stories after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Typhoon Quinta has left at least 3 people dead and several others missing. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, reported that all fatalities were due to drowning. The number of people affected has reached nearly 1 million, with over 77,000 residents taking shelter at 800 evacuation centers. Authorities in the Bicol region are still on the hunt for 9 missing people, most are fishermen whose boats sank off the Catanduanes coast. Over in Batangas, 3 vessels also reportedly capsized, leaving 1 yacht crew member missing. Meanwhile, operations at the Batangas port have returned to normal as the weather continues to improve. The port in Albay has also reopened, as well as other businesses across the province. Quinta has brought agricultural damage worth over 280 million pesos in Albay alone. The typhoon also wreaked havoc on crops in Cagayan, with damage initially estimated at 52 million pesos. The Trough of Quinta and the frontal system are still expected to bring rains over the province. 2 House committees have formally recommended the filing of charges against PhilHealth officials in connection with the corruption issues hounding the agency. To give us details, Ria Fernandez reports to us live from the Batasang Pambansa. Ria, good afternoon. Who are these officials that have been included in the lawmakers' recommendation?
Charles Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, former PhilHealth Chief Ricardo Morales, and several other top-ranking officials are found liable in the PhilHealth corruption mess. The House Committees on Public Accounts and Good Government recommended the filing of cases against these personalities based on their over 70-page committee report. The nature of charges will vary on members of the PhilHealth Board and the Executive Committee, according to Public Accounts Chairperson Mike Defensor. The lawmakers made this decision after rejecting Good Government Panel Chairperson Jonathan Alvarado's motion to absolve the Duque-chaired PhilHealth board from the anomalies. His motion was initially focused on the issues surrounding PhilHealth's all-case rate system. Alvarado said he believes in the good intention of the policy set by the board, but he thinks the problem lies in the implementation. Hence, he proposed that the Execom should only be the ones to face RAPs. However, his colleagues begged to differ, as reflected on the results of their nominal voting. House lawmakers also noted abuses in the interim reimbursement mechanism, such as the huge cash advances and releases even to non-accredited and non-COVID facilities. They also pointed out the disadvantageous settlements with some hospitals, as well as the lack of payment system, among others. Here's what Public Accounts Chair Mike Defensor had to say about their decision.
Walang pinili o iniwasan ang pinagsamang komite sa mga opisyal mula sa loob ng PhilHealth at maging sa kataas-taasang mga nanunungkulan sa ating pamahalaan.
Charles, the House panels also sought in their committee report the removal of mandatory PhilHealth contributions of OFWs as stated in the Universal Healthcare Law. They also sought the granting of emergency powers to President Duterte to overhaul the PhilHealth agency, as well as the inclusion of a special provision on the General Appropriations Bill to protect the national government's 71 billion peso contribution to PhilHealth for next year. Charles?
Thanks for that, Ria. That was Ria Fernandez reporting live from the Batasang Pambansa. The Philippine Red Cross warns that the halted testing may result in a spike in COVID-19 infections. But it maintains that the testing will not resume until PhilHealth settles its billion-peso debt. Mean Los Baños with a report.
The office of Senator Gordon has been receiving complaints about the overcharging of some private labs for COVID-19 tests. This after the Philippine Red Cross stopped its PhilHealth charge tests due to the state insurer's overdue balance of around 1.1 billion pesos. PRC Chairman Senator Richard Gordon showed some of the messages his office had received. One was about a company which conducts tests at the NAIA for 10,000 pesos before issuing the results in 24 hours. The complaint suggests that if passengers would like to get the results immediately, they should pay up to 20,000 pesos.
So nakikita nyo ang inconvenience na ginagawa nitong racket na ito. Nahuli sa aeroplano, hindi makauwi kagad. Naghihintay sa hotel, gastos. Tapos meron silang ladderized type of charging. You're taking advantage of the misery of other people.
Even Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III said the PRC's testing is a big loss, especially among repatriated workers.
Meron dyan mga private laboratories na they can give you the result in 12 to 24 hours. Pero at what cost? Umaabot ng 7,000 to 10,000. Kawawa naman yung ating mga OFWs.
Gordon maintained that they have no choice but to wait for PhilHealth to settle its debt as repeatedly promised by Chairman Dante Gueran.
Ang sinasabi niya sa amin lahat, hintayin na lang natin, sir, yung DBM. Okay na yung DBM. Okay na. O yung DOJ. Panibago ng panibago eh. Hindi ko maintindihan, really. In all my born days in government, in the public service, hindi ko maintindihan anong pumapasok sa utak na itong sigiran.
Gordon suggested that PhilHealth has the money but Gueran may be scared to act immediately on the issue.
Ang sinasabi ko, narinig ko sinasabi niya, hearsay ito pag umalis na ang presidente, bagong administrasyon, di ako iimbestigahin. So dapat maingat ako, sobrang ingat. Sobrang ang ingat para sa kanya, sobrang naman reckless sa mga tao na hindi matetest.
Meanwhile, the PRC chairman warned of possible spike in COVID-19 cases following the testing halt. Since October 15, around 12,000 individuals have not been tested daily. Gordon noted that the decline in the number of reported cases in the past days may also be attributed to the lack of tests. But he clarified that the PRC is still conducting tests for people who are able to pay the 3,500 pesos to sustain the service. One News has asked PhilHealth for a comment, but its corporate communications department said they will just release a statement. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
More than 60 million Americans have cast their votes ahead of the election day on November 3. Data from the U.S. Elections Project shows a record-breaking pace in early voting that could lead to a very high voter turnout. This indicates an intense interest in the presidential race between Republican Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden. Analysts say Democrats hold a 2-to-1 advantage in early voting due to mail balloting. The early voter turnout also shows that more voters are trying to reduce their risk of exposure to COVID-19. For more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. And you can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.